Good evening, everyone, and thanks very much for inviting us onto your programme. I am the chair and founder of Save British Farming, and we set up this little campaign group last year after having set up initially as Farmers for a People's Vote. I live in North Wiltshire with my husband, who was born here on this farm, and we have a mixed farm of beef cattle and arable. And ever since the referendum, or just before the referendum, I've been actively involved in campaigning to remain in the European Union, because I knew that it was going to be very damaging to not only to farming, but to our food system. And it's been a very torturous few years because everything's always been so hypothetical, and we've been accused of being scaremongers and all those other things. Added to that, as farmers, we've also been attacked by Remainers because there is a myth that exists that all farmers voted for Brexit, and we don't actually know the numbers of how many farmers voted for Brexit. We don't know how any industry voted for Brexit, but it is actually irrelevant because it's not so much about the farmer, it's about people's food, and that is what's under attack. So whether the farmers voted for it or not is absolutely irrelevant. And so I'm really trying to get people to understand the importance of farming for individuals, because over the last few decades, we have been moved away from, people have moved away from farming. You used to have farms in every area and abattoirs and cattle markets in every town. That's all changed. And people seem to think that their food comes from a supermarket. And as we're seeing right now, there are food shortages, and those are set to continue and very likely to get a lot worse. And that's really where we need people's focus to be, because what this government are doing to us is they are incentivising us to be park keepers, so that we are literally on this farm turning fields into environmental schemes, because that's going to pay us to do that. And those fields are no longer going to be making your food. So as we shrink our production, that means that British food is going to shrink as well. Added to that, the food we normally export to Europe, which is like a food bank, really, so that if there is a food shortage, we can always call on that food bank, that is diminishing as well. So the question that you really need to be asking, instead of whether farmers voted Brexit or not, is who is going to feed us and where is that food going to come from? Because largely the European suppliers don't want to come over here. There's too much paperwork. They'd rather go to another European country. Added to that, there's not many goods for them to return with, because again, British exporters are having so many difficulties getting their food over there, particularly if they're smaller exporters. And that is again set to get worse as we end this transition period at the end of the year, and there will be more paperwork involved. So I think everybody, instead of focusing on lots of other things about Brexit, should be focused on this. This is what matters. It's food. Without food, we die. And every day, every night, that's what I think about. What is going to happen if we don't have enough food? And that's really what I hope that you'll get from this, from all three of us from Save British Farming, because this is the conundrum that we all live with. And I hope that in us explaining this to you, that you will then also go on and explain it to your networks and get people interested in food production, which is farming. So on that cheery note, I'll pass the baton on to the next person, and I'll look forward to any challenging questions.